Arid plains as far as the eye can see. This is Donana, one of the largest wetlands in Europe, but it's now almost entirely dry. José has worked as a guide for the last 6 years. Several times a week he counts the animals.
Usually this area has a pretty extensive sheet of water on it. We'd be able to see pink flamingos, different types of ducks, herons. Since there's no water, migrating birds no longer stop here.
The lack of rain has led the bird population to fall by more than 80% in a year.
Visitors who come and see the situation are saddened, as am I. But I worry a lot about the next generations who are only going to know the park from the encyclopedia and from school textbooks.
These images were filmed 5 years ago. At the time, the largest lagoon in Donana was still a refuge for many animals, even in the summer. But this year, intense drought has dried up the last traces of moisture.
Those areas that have water the whole year round, and there aren't many of them, are important as they ensure the survival of much of the fauna and flora. I'd like to think that we can still do something, but I may be wrong.
Intensive farming is another major factor behind the drying up of Donana. 11,000 hectares of greenhouses surround the park. A single hectare requires 2 Olympic-sized pools of water a year, and some farmers illegally irrigate. Juan has campaigned about water for the last 30 years. He frequently catches people collecting it illegally.
This well is permanently funneling out water, and from here it gets distributed to maintain all sorts of crops.
A few meters into the forest, there are thousands of illegal wells.
1, 2, 3 here. There are 3 wells. Look at all of the wells.
And yet the water on part of this land was banned from irrigational use in 2014, under pressure from the EU. Despite that, water is still being extracted.
This is a really large well. We're talking 15 meters deep. In other words, the level of the underground water. The Andalusian government supports certain farmers who are outside the regulations and supports the business sector rather than conserving Donana.
The Spanish government has already closed 220 illegal wells in recent years. Far too few, say ecologists. For their part, the Andalusian authorities are lobbying for those wells to be legalized. This agricultural spokesman is worried.
We keep the water we need to irrigate for a whole day here. If we legalize farmers that don't follow the rules, it's obvious that they're going to ask us to take out less water, and so suddenly we're going to have to reduce our crops.
These red fruits are at the centre of a battle over water. This business is lucrative, representing turnover of €500 million a year. Manuel believes illegal farming threatens the sector.
The image they give affects everyone because people think that at Donana we're all breaking the law. We've been farming legally and in a controlled way for 40 years. Our activity depends on the market essentially, so if no one wants to buy, we're going to have to stop production.
Spain suspended a plan to legalise the wells under pressure from the EU authorities. Manuel Mora is the mayor of Lucena.
Hi, how are you?
A town of 40,000 residents, known for having the largest number of illegal wells. In this room, he archives all the infractions registered by the Spanish authorities. Since the town hall owns the land, it has to pay part of the fines.
Look, this was a fine of €160,000. It's so much money that we're going to have to ask for the payments to be staggered. And these ones are what I'd call the usual fines. One for €500 and another for 1,000.
Lucena was historically a farming town. Its mayor feels abandoned.
We want to protect Donana, but we aren't prepared to do that by sacrificing ourselves. We've got a right to live here. Some people want to throw out the farmers, but there is no alternative to farming. There are no social alternatives.
To avoid new sanctions, the central and regional governments have just presented a common action plan to Brussels. They propose closing more than 1,000 illegal wells and investing more than €100 million to improve water infrastructure. The plan could be the last hope of saving Donana.